Yo guys, what is up? My name is Jeracraft and today we're taking Minecraft to the absolute limit. As some of you might know, I once built a giant Minecraft house. This was done by creating a selection of giant Minecraft blocks and then simply using this house as reference to pretty much create this insane monstrosity. Now, ever since I built this house, I have always wondered what it would be like to actually detail the build, basically creating a much more realistic fantasy-themed dwelling. Now, of course, this could potentially take months of hard work, considering the sheer scale of this build. So I'm going to try and use a combination of tools from world edit to 3D modeling to find out if this idea is actually possible. So without further ado, let's begin today's epic Minecraft adventure. Now, the very first step is to import the house into a standard Minecraft world. I mean, just because I think it would look much nicer on the thumbnail, but seeing as Mojang has increased the build height, all we have to do is lower the terrain of this magnificent valley and the giant house should pretty much fit perfectly. I actually found this seed on my first try using the large biomes option, and the best part is we have 3 villagers surrounding this giant house, so it's kind of good for just some size comparison. Now we're going to kick things off with just an example of some of the kind of stuff we can do using a website called Tinkercad. Here we have a selection of very basic 3D models, and the really cool thing about this is we can select, let's say, this giant Halloween pumpkin and instantly convert that into Minecraft blocks. Then you can easily import the model into Minecraft as a schematic. Now obviously the scale is going to be a bit of a challenge. The larger the object, the more detail, but of course we can't make them too big, if not it just won't match with the size of the house. And if the object is too small, well, then it's just practically pointless. I might as well just build them myself. But there are a few things we could do. For example, we could use a model like this one to create a stack of barrels. Obviously, this will save a bit of time, and once we have the correct scale to match with the size of the house, it's just a matter of transforming the object to get as much detail into this build as possible. So obviously we still need to do a lot of work by hand, but then again, this was just a simple design. We can actually go a step further by creating our very own, much more complicated 3D models using Blender. Once we're done with the design, we can simply transfer them to Tinkercad for a few final steps before finally transferring the model into Minecraft. Boy, I actually thought this was going to be a lot easier, but just by having access to the bare minimum framework, we can at least save a couple of hours of extra work. But again, we still have to build and redesign each 3D model to make sure they look as perfect as possible, while also experimenting with ideas and to see just what kind of extra objects and details we can add to this gigantic house. Honestly, I really love this project so much, just because it gives me so many different options to build from. You know, unlike the usual building of cities and castles, this project just offers me something way different. I mean, just take a look at the quality of this new staircase. From a simple 3D model, I've managed to transform the stairs into some logs that have been cut in half. Now, just trying to work out what to add next and finding the best ways to put them together was much more enjoyable than I thought. Obviously, there's still tons of work to be done. I mean, I swear I could probably transform this hollow log into a functional house, and that alone would probably make for a decent video. But no, here we are, staring at this absurd house, wondering how the heck I'm going to manage to transform it. But at this point, I think you get the idea of what I'm trying to achieve here, so I'm going to focus on finishing the first level of the house while trying to add as many decorations as possible. I mean, we already have some pretty crazy designs, lots of different tools, flower pots, books. I can't even imagine how incredible this is going to look once everything's complete. Right now, I'm around 30 hours into building, and it's already looking pretty insane. Now, one of the biggest additions was this giant canopy. It took a lot of different attempts to try and get the perfect scale for this. I mean, it was an absolute nightmare, but it does make for quite a large portion of the house, and it just looks so good after all the detailing. I mean, the 3D models definitely grants you with a decent guideline despite having to fix all the issues, but it's the smaller details that really make this project come to life. The stitching across the cloth, the ropes holding the beams together, and just the choice of colors and blocks are extremely important. But I have to say, one of my biggest concerns is trying to tackle the walls and, you know, just the house in general. And trust me, I tried all sorts of 3D models, texturing on Blender, pretty much wasting 6 hours of my life because nothing really convinced me. The models just don't really translate well into Minecraft. I mean, this might as well be just a giant floating turd. But the good news is, I soon realized that I've been building in Minecraft for over 12 years, and honestly, it was actually quite easy to just build the entire base of the house myself. I don't know why I thought this was going to be a huge fail, but it's turned out looking way better than expected. Now, considering how blocky the house actually is, I don't really think transforming each block individually is really a good idea. Like, it definitely won't make the house look any more realistic. So just like an absolute maniac, I decided to redesign the entire house from scratch. I'm going to try and keep the original shape of the house. I was just mostly trying to get rid of all the sharp edges, but I soon had a realization that that would mean practically getting rid of the entire house. Maybe I'm just being a little overconfident. I mean, this has definitely not been easy to put together, let's just say that much, especially when it comes down to my obsession with perfection and detail. Building some nice brick patterns across the main pillars, beams of wood holding the house together, and well, you know, at the end of the day, it all comes down to trial and error. Just take a look at the difference between the first, second, and final flower pot design. So I'm pretty much just going back and forth, refining each section of the build until my brain finally stops complaining about lack of detail. Now, I've also built some extra stuff along the way, like these melting candles just resting off the edge of this wall, which I just thought looked really cool. And luckily, as we progress upwards, I do have the perfect 3D model roof just to get us started on the second floor. I mean, right now it's just a basic shape, but I do have some ideas that might hopefully help improve the design. Now, before I forget, let's first import this brand new chimney, which I literally just created using a bunch of random shapes on Tinkercad, which somehow fit perfectly on the very first try. I'm kidding, it was an absolute nightmare. But at this point, the entire house is practically ready for some final detailing, as well as a couple of extra objects like these flags, the ladder, and let me just say, this house is looking absolutely incredible. The level of detail that you can put into a build of this scale is just so insane. And I just love these brick patterns, all the different textures you can make. It's almost easy to forget just how massive the house actually is. But just by walking at ground level, you can see the true scale and just how crazy this build really is. Now, of course, I've gone for a blue colored roof just to bring me back to the days of flying around Stormwind on my dragon. And by the way, this was incredibly confusing to put together, you know, the pattern of shingles on the roof, but the final result was definitely worth the extra effort. I mean, this is just a simple house at the end of the day, simple, but it would be interesting to try this out with some other ideas, maybe building a giant blacksmith, or maybe even a survival map based on the game Grounded. And finally, I surrounded the entire house in some giant moldy looking rocks just to make the surroundings look a lot less awkward. And here is the final result of today's magnificent creation. Of course, you can help support my channel by downloading this world either on Patreon or using the official store. And if this video gets 100,000 likes, I swear I'm going to put the floating turd on the store.